trees in the backwoods night. Red lights cutting through the pine in flight. Bigfoot stomping with his youngling beard. Whispers of tales that ain't too clear. UFOs buzzing solo through the haze. Howling banshees set the forest ablaze. Jersey devil howls drink rays to the sky. Drunken cryptids party until the morning's night. Yeah. It's showtime, running wild in the moonlight. Stars burn down, watch the freaks all take flight.
To good times.
Raise your glasses to the mysteries divine. It's showtime, let the
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to an episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who's been liking, supporting, and sharing the show. Thank you to, of course, blademedia.com for the hard work on the logo, man. Dylan, I appreciate it. Y'all make sure you check out Blade Media, BLAYED media.com. Also, I got to give another shout out to, of course, in the Old Bars. I have to give it to Old Bars. Thank you, Bart, for providing a secondary home for me to record, and for the Cedars Fan Club. I appreciate it so very much, and for hosting the location of the Arkansas Cryptid Fest. That's right, June 6th, you guys. We're going to have our own Arkansas Cryptid Fest. You probably see it here in the background, the camera behind me. And in case you haven't seen it, ta-da! This is the rough copy. There's no date on there. June 6th, though. Write it down. June 6th. All right. So we're going to have the guest speakers of Todd Neese, Miss Betsy, Justin and Jay from the Cryptids the Corn podcast, Ron Nichols and Michael Cook. Those are the VIP speakers. And of course, we're going to have coming with the spirits, Nevermore Hollows. John from Miss Monsters and Mullets. Dano from the Cryptid podcast will be speaking as well. It is a free event minus the VIP. If you guys want to get your VIP tickets, please check out the Eventbrite link in the notes below in the show notes. So please check us out. There's also a Patreon as well. So find out whatever tier works for you. Great. I got bonus material up on there. I got one on the Amityville. I got a couple of encounters. Got some pretty cool little things up on there. Even have a cool one about the jackalope, but you have to go to Patreon to check that out. Make sure you do that. There's also Buy Me a Coffee. Look, I like coffee, you guys. I know the show is Drunken Cryptids, but I do like coffee. I'm a big fan of coffee. So please make sure you go ahead and check that out as well. And then, of course, I've got, let's see here, and it's right to the tip of my tongue, and I cannot think of their name, but they were nice enough to send me a wonderful batch of garlic seasoning. And as the show goes on, as they come up in my memory, I'll probably blurt it out because, my ADHD will do that to you guys. But let's talk about today's guest. So I've got Ryan and Brenda coming all the way from California. Now, Ryan is a self-proclaimed fireman who's been doing this for how many years, Ryan? Anyways, but Ryan, you're the second fireman that I've had on the show, and I like to interview first responders a lot. And Miss, Brenda, you just came off of the, being an EMT. A dear friend of mine, he's married to an EMT, well, a former EMT as well. And the stories she has are comically, I know I have a grunt mentality, so we can all kind of crack jokes about these things, where most people just kind of go, get real shocked and freaked out on. So. We'll get together and we'll crack jokes. I like about first responders is you guys aren't into the business of BS. What you see is what you write down. What happens is what it is. And that's why I love military, law enforcement, and first responders. Everybody's all, but for some reason, in these career fields, we have to be more precise into our detail, into our explanation, into our encounters of what we're dealing with. So I do want to say thank you for coming on. And you guys have, I love the title, Paranormal Triage. So why don't you tell everybody what that is, and we'll go from there.
Well, I think when we first started trying to find a name for our group, everything was taken. I didn't know there was that many groups out there. I'm like, oh my gosh, everything I wanted to name our group was just taken. So then we're like, well, we're firefighters, so why don't we use triage? And our basis was we were actually going to use this triage scenario, and you have multi-casualty incidents, you got to triage them all out and you use the colors and all that. So it kind of just stuck. And we still kind of go by that, but yeah, it's not as easy as as we wanted it to be. But that's kind of how the name came about, and it just fit. It stuck.
I love it. I'm not gonna lie. It's a great name. And so when y'all popped up in the chat yesterday, I was like, wait, I know that name. Oh, wait, okay. And I got excited.
And it's funny because people have a hard time saying triage. So I didn't know that was going to be complicated, but it is.
Yeah.
Take
Well, if we
that.
keep saying it enough, they'll be by the end of the show, they'll be going triage, triage, triage.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of morphed into, like when we first started our journey, several years ago as, doing a paranormal investigation, kind of rating, kind of how much, how intense the activity is. That was the whole idea, to triage the intensity of the paranormal thing. And then we realized that there's a little more to it, and it's expanded, right? You're talking about attention to detail. We preach that massively in the first responder community. So it's like that's just one aspect of the detail. So really, it's that part of triage, and also taking the evidence that you get from the detective work that you have to do when you do an investigation, from the history that was there, the different things that happened in those places, things that maybe the people that are living there or their businesses there, what they're experiencing, and taking and triaging the evidence, also to kind of put it into the context of what the paranormal activity is. So it's kind of morphed into this giant thing that's a little bit harder to explain than just how haunted is something.
I like that take, and I like how you put the triage in with it. And you're right, though. A lot of people do believe that when you go out and do paranormal research, you just show up and walk in and go, hi, here we are, makes things move.
Yeah.
To where if I get invited anywhere, I'm going to try not to know the history, if that makes sense. I don't want to know what they're seeing, what they're encountering. I'll just walk in and go, okay, do something. And, I am that guy. Afterward, on the other hand, then I want to dig into, and that's can kind of help collaborate with the evidence or the experience that I had inside the house. Prime example, Charlene Spears invited me to come up to Kansas back in September to investigate the Sally House up there. And that was, I kept myself in the dark. I didn't want to know anything about it at all. So got there, had encounters, and was afterward, by going through and, researching what took place there originally, I was going, hey, wait a minute, that happened to me. That happened to me. And JD had come down from Kansas right about New Year's, and right after New Year's. And so he put the show on that, from 1993 that this house was featured in. And he goes, it was funny watching your faces. The people were talking about what was happening in the house, and you're going, happened to me, So, but I'm with you. There is a lot that goes in, but I do like to triage the levels of it. How haunted is it really? Just like you would run a triage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And there's something to be said about kind of going in blind with not knowing everything, because you don't want to have that preconceived notion about something. But then there's also that you have to find that balance, because you still need to know a little bit in order to clue on to what you're hearing, especially if you're getting, voices over a spirit box, or you're getting something on an EVP. It may be completely, irrelevant to what you're doing at the time. And you just missed your whole clue to dig into something else, to maybe ask different questions. So one of the good things that at least our last investigation that we did, well, the last one we've got posted, was at American Legion, and we had some of the people that had those experiences. They're kind of on standby. So when something would happen that didn't make sense to us, we could be like, hey, does this mean something to you?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh yeah, well, in that chair, we call it the dead man's chair. And then it made more sense in the context of what we were doing. So trying to merge those two worlds together is really what we try to do. It's not an easy task, but we try at least.
Well, no, I mean, y'all, I think y'all are onto something, to be honest with you. I think it's something good. So, well, how long have y'all been out doing your research and your investigations?
I think it started in, we started watching, during COVID, obviously we all binge watched a ton of shows, and I think we started watching Ghost Adventures. So the interest kind of started there. But I think we started actually investigating in 2022.
Yeah, it's like the tail end of, at least for our area, kind of the last of the shutdown stuff when things started to open up again. We really started, okay, hey, we like this. We should try doing this. And it turned into very, very quickly. I went from, because of our first responder background, I went from, this is not just something, it can be a hobby. You actually have to dedicate some time and effort into it, and, put your best foot forward to get the best results. So we kind of turned it into I mean, we don't collect money. We don't charge people. We're not monetized. It's not a business, but we approach it like it's a business, not a hobby.
No, yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not monetized in any way. I mean, I sell T-shirts and such, but that's about
Yeah.
it. That's just kind of helping out. But for this is for the festival coming up. This isn't for money. This is like I talked about in the live yesterday. I'm doing this to try and get information out there to people who are always watching the TV shows. Because I've learned once you start your own investigations and your own research and you're doing it right, it's nothing like what's on TV.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, that's
absolutely.
entertainment.
Yes.
We're not jump scares. I always say our channel is pretty boring because we don't do that. And we're first responders, so we're trained not to freak out. So there'll be something happening, and we'll totally be like, eh.
Yeah, the reaction, the typical, I guess you call it the everyday average person or quote unquote civilian, right? Might have a voice whispered in the ear and they're going to jump and do the, oh my gosh, reaction to it versus, I don't know. I've been in the first responder world for 25 years. So I've seen and experienced every crazy thing you can possibly think of. So when I hear a bit whisper in my ear, it's like, I just kind of turn and react to it, but I'm not doing a backflip. So when
I'm with you
people
on
watch
that
your
one.
videos,
Well, and they want, and the thing is, people want to see that to her. But first off, thank you for 25 years, man. That's something that is something to brag about. I mean, I've been walking around with a T-shirt and said, "Yeah, 25 years. What's up?" But and I think part of it is right to where, me and my buddy Rick, we went to Tombstone. And he's an old Army buddy. We went there in 2021. Decided to take a road trip. Linked up with him in Dallas. I'm like, let's go to Tombstone, man. Let's just go Area 51. Not airfield, but let's go to Roswell. Let's go to Tombstone. Let's go get a picture of us standing on the corner of Winslow, Arizona. Why not? Just a fun road trip. Nothing cryptid, no paranormal, nothing. Stone's haunted.
We just went there.
you can't walk through there as a tourist and not experience something.
Yeah, we just
Okay,
went
so
there.
y'all just went there. All right,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
okay, so the Birdcage Theater.
Oh,
Yes.
So okay, the stairs right there, the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so by the time we got there, we ate. We went down there. It was they were shutting down, so there's no way we could go through it. So we waited till the next day. So I'll tell you about the evening in a second. But at the Birdcage, so we go down there. We're walking around. I'll be honest, I'm bored. I really am. I'm like, okay, this is the same stuff you have at every museum in the Old West. Oh look, there's a typewriter. I've seen a typewriter before. So nothing at all, but it was kind of cool looking around and picturing the movie scene. They did a really good job with the film Tombstone to try and recapture what the Birdcage looked like on the set. As I was going up the stairs, I felt a hand on this shoulder that was towards, the stage. This was the wall and it's towards the stage. Hand grabbed my shoulder and just kind of rubbed. I'm wearing a T-shirt, so obviously I'm filming everything, rubbing my shoulder. And I stopped and Rick was has about 3 steps behind me. I turned around and I was like, something just touched me. Not in the, oh my gosh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I don't think they want you here. And I went, no, that was not the touch that I wanted. I mean, that was not that kind of touch.
That was the other kind.
That was a, hey.
That was
Then
like
I
a
found
feminine
out we went
touch.
downstairs and asked the museum for the prostitutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's different. So, but that night, we had some, and we saw some shadow people at night, that night before, at Big Nose Kate's.
Okay. Yep.
Big long bar they have right there in the middle of it. They have the stairs that go down.
Yep.
It's got, so we're sitting in the middle and they have one of those little mini fridges right there. And there's nobody in there. There's like 2 people all the way at one end, 2 people all the way at the other end. And the bartender, she was all the way down there. And there's a little mini fridge and there's a weird bottle on the top of it. And it stood out. I'm looking, what is that thing? And the whole mini fridge just starts going, and we're going, what the hell? So I looked at Rick. I was like, did you see that? And he goes, yeah. So we're watching it again. I'm like, okay, boom, it happened again. So at this point in time, Rick's, I was like, hey, he calls the bartender and he goes, hey, that thing was moving. And she goes, oh, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They have a lot of stuff going on in that place.
Yeah. And she ended up telling me too, she goes, yeah, when she first started that first week, after they were letting her close on her own, she goes, I just called out. All right, I'm locking the door. And the voice from the basement yelled out, I'll be right there. And she went, no, you won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did an investigation there. So we caught a couple things there while we were there. We investigated an old, well, it's a coffee shop now, but it was I guess a mortuary. So
Yeah, it was one of the 3 or 4 undertaker offices, right? I mean, there was so much violence happening in that town. When you really dig into the history, there was several undertakers,
yeah.
right? Not just one. So the place we investigated was one of the undertakers' places of business.
Yeah, and we
So-
just went there. We haven't dropped that video yet, but we just went there. And that was probably the first time that me personally, I've ever been encountered by a negative spirit, I guess you could say.
Okay,
It wasn't
what's
happy. It was not a nice spirit. It was weird.
since you haven't dropped the episode yet, we don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Yeah.
So we'll because I'm curious now. Like, what do you mean you encountered a negative? Let's dig into that one.
We'll
But
say
I don't
that'll be a nail biter cliffhanger, and also we learned a lot about the history there. The whole place is full of history, right? But it's not the history from the TV shows or the movies.
Yeah, we actually
Right.
when we went there, we didn't go to the specific touristy places. We talked to more locals. We wanted to hear stuff from the local people. So
That's
So
what
that's-
we were looking at that night. And I tell everybody it was a Tuesday night we got there. So we had Taco Tuesday at Vogelman's. And the owner had just purchased it at the time. He was remodeling everything up. The bar was really neat how they set up the bowling alley. And he was telling us the history of the location, what went on, what was going on. Everywhere we went tonight, we happened to meet an owner.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
at the Oriental, at the nice bartender at Big Nose Kate's. Doc Holidays was the only one that was happening. That one had a crowd, but everywhere else was dead.
Yeah.
So we were able to meet and talk with these owners, and they were real friendly, real open about it. Oh yeah, we have this and this and this.
Yeah.
That's how everybody go at night.
Yeah.
During the day, it's like Disneyland for the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All the gunfights and all the stuff happening and all the touristy stuff, but we really wanted to showcase the true history from the locals and the people that own the place and people that have the experiences. So it'll drop sooner.
Yeah.
Soon
We
enough.
even got to see a good bar fight, so that was interesting.
Yeah.
You know how 2:00 in the morning is.
Okay, that was a good bar fight then.
Yeah, it was a good bar fight. It was right at closing time, and we went in December, and it was like the start of their kind of Christmas holiday festival. So the place was packed with people,
Yeah.
and a lot of I'll call them locals because the surrounding towns people kind of flock there for that festival. So it's like they're local enough, right? They're from the town, 20 minutes away, type of thing, and they frequent there. So we got to talk to a lot of cool people. So. Yeah, that was a good experience.
I love it. So what got you guys? Okay, so you were watching TV shows during COVID, but I mean, was there anything that happened to you guys prior to that? I mean, did y'all already have a strong belief in the paranormal, or?
Well, because of my religious upbringing, I was Jehovah's Witness. So people tell me I'm an empath. I don't entertain that like to the degree that most people would when they're told that. I don't seek it out. So I've always had experiences my whole life, but never really got to talk about it or share it. So that I didn't really address that again until we had some personal things happen to us. So our house that we live in currently, we've lived in haunted houses before. And I think that was,
We knew about it. So there was skepticism, but not, right? So we've had experiences personally that were scary at the time, and I kind of was like, well, that's either in my head or what, everything that I've seen and experienced, sometimes things come back to haunt you, right? No pun intended, but they did at this point. So yeah, and I had some of friends with me were moving out of the house when we had experiences. And then we moved into our current house and had some experiences that were like, you don't really think about it until some personal kind of tragedies happened to us. And then it kind of opened up the doors to everything going on. And that was really kind of the catalyst that was like, hey, we're going to do this. And we're going to do this right.
So I understand that part completely. Miss Brenda, though, you said you were raised Jehovah's Witness, though.
yeah.
All right, and I'm assuming you're no longer practicing.
No, I haven't. We got disfellowshipped when my parents got divorced when I was young. So
Okay.
you get disfellowshipped.
I was raised
pretty
Mormon,
easy.
so I'm from Utah, so I was obviously raised Mormon, so I completely understand that one.
Yeah.
I have not been excommunicated yet, so But I
I'm not
don't
broken
practice
up
either.
about it. I mean, I'm not too broke. I'm not really a label person. So, I mean,
No.
I do believe in God and higher powers and all that, but I think labels are kind of um, unproductive. But yeah, it's just me. So,
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, with the paranormal side going on and the empath side and with the Jehovah's Witness upbringing, I wonder if, how that conflict, plays out, or have you had to kind of rewire yourself a little bit from the Jehovah's Witness upbringing to
um,
what was going on?
yeah, I do have to kind of rewire myself. It's very hard because, in that religion, if you don't wear that label, then you're never going to go to heaven. When the world comes to an end, you won't ascend on to wherever we go after this. So yeah, it kind of messes with your head a little bit because you always feel like you're sinning in everything that you do. Celebrating a birthday, doing Christmas. I love Christmas just because I like to decorate. I don't have any connection there, as far as a religious connection, because we just weren't raised like that. Halloween, that's kind of a given. It's another I like to decorate. And I like candy, so who doesn't like candy? But it does mess with me. And as far as the ghostly side of it, we've never talked about that stuff. We never watched scary movies. We didn't, none of that stuff is ever talked about. It's just buy their book and that's it. And that's what you believe in. I didn't find out until we did an investigation at Mount Shasta that I thought Jehovah's Witnesses were from the very beginning, and it's not. This religion was created in the late 1800s by a guy that was, I think,
He was a Lutheran to start with.
yeah. And then he didn't like that, and then he got with another group of people, and they went over stuff, and then he didn't like what they were preaching about the Trinity and stuff. So him and another friend, they had already created the Watchtower. The little Watchtower Jehovah's Witnesses pass out. That was already it was already being passed out. But then out of that, they created the Jehovah's Witness group, religion, whatever. So that was a little bit disturbing because I'm like, what? I thought this was from the very beginning. But that's what those kind of things do. If you don't do your own research and understand what you're in, you just don't know. You just go along with it. So, but yeah, I've had to do a little adjustment. I still battle with it. It's not something that's easy. You know.
There's
Yes.
something to be said about all this paranormal stuff, whether it's and I'll explain what I believe is paranormal in here in a second, but you have to be open minded. So, I grew up very, very, very strict Catholic. So all of the 12 years of Catholic school type stuff, confirmed everything. And then, I kind of moved away from that when, the Catholic church was protecting people that I didn't believe they should be protecting, that were doing bad things to children. So it really messed up my brain as far as Catholicism. But then starting all of this with her journey growing up Jehovah's Witness, we realized you really have to be open minded to everything you read and be willing to look at what both sides of the aisle are saying when it comes to the evidence, biblically, paranormally, everything, to put your conclusions together. So you come to the appropriate conclusion.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, especially when it comes to the biblical side. It shocks a lot of people who don't know me. I view all of my research, paranormal and cryptid, and from a Christian perspective, and that is part of that Mormon upbringing that I had as well. Like you, Miss Brenda, there are times I do have a conflict because of that upbringing, and of course with you as well.
Yeah.
There's that conflict, and it seems to me, I just had a conversation. I interviewed uh, Terry Fox last week, who's a Southern Baptist exorcist. And so by the time Mel's episode dropped, his already dropped. And in that conversation we had, it was to the point to where a direction the church went differently. I say the church, I mean Christianity as a whole, not just 1%, church. About 150 years ago, they changed. Something changed. We got away from the paranormal side of it and the supernatural side of it, because that's what religion really is. There's a supernatural, paranormal, it's all through the Bible, whether it be the
Absolutely.
Old Testament or the New Testament. Miracles are performed, giants are there,
Yeah.
parting of Red Seas. I mean, walking on water. I mean, there's so much that goes on, casting out demons. I mean, there's so much that takes place inside the Bible to where it's full of it. And we've just gotten away from it as a whole.
Right.
Mhm.
We no
Yeah.
longer recognize it. Instead, it's, we're paying more attention to these things
Yeah.
than we are anything else, So 150 years ago, if you were hearing weird noises out in the woods, they'd be like, okay, yeah, there's something out there. Let's pray about it. Let's get rid of it.
Mhm.
Now they're like, So what kind of medication are you on?
Right.
Is there a type of medication you should be on? And my
Yeah.
favorite one is, well, how much have you had to drink? I'm like,
Yeah.
I have, look, the show's called Drunken Cryptids for a reason. I do like to drink beer. And I have been hammered in the military quite often. Not one time that I hallucinate anything on beer.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I may change my mind about certain, decisions I had made while I was there, but nothing had been hallucinated or anything at all. So, and that's the one thing is it's where they found a way to get rid of this stuff to discredit these things. And religion is one of those tools I believe they use.
Yeah, I started being able to come to terms with it here recently, that I almost feel like I'm okay now. I started listening to Timothy Alvarino, um, and the way he thinks and his thought processes and stuff are I felt like that was kind of where I belonged. Like it was the same thought process. So when I started listening to him, I started feeling a little bit better about the things I'm interested in, my curiosities, things of that nature. So I think I'm going to be able to come to grips with it, some of the stuff that we think and do and all that.
Yeah, still be able to have that Christian outlook
Mhm.
at everything that you're approaching. But like you said, if we were to take a time machine back 150 years ago, these things were just okay. Yeah, we believe it. We'll pray about it. The other part of it, though, is it always bad? That's the other thing
Yeah.
too. Maybe it's a sign. Maybe you need to look into it. So again, there goes to being open minded and really paying attention to what you're experiencing and what you're seeing. From you know, a physical thing that you may see or feel, experience, to the emotions that you feel at the same time. When you feel that touch, what did the emotions do to you? So how does it affect your soul? How does it affect that? All those things need to be taken into account in order to really truly understand the experience you have. And that's kind of what we've come to and what we like to do when we do our investigations, because then we can help explain some of that to the people that are experiencing those things.
Yeah.
Because most people that come to us, they're just confused. Hey, this is happening. Is it a demon? I'm confused. Okay, well, let us go in there and see what we can find. And we'll look at the evidence and we'll explain the evidence to you, and you can make up your mind off of it.
No, I like that. Especially the part where you brought it up too. So, and I'll try to share with you my thoughts on the demon thing. I don't think every haunting is a demon, and I don't think every evil entity is a demon. I do think that there are certain, let's be honest. We have people who are, that's a pretty chill person. That person's kind of a so-and-so. All right, that person's not a good person. And then there's, then of course you have the upper tier one, the, demon thing. And I honestly do not believe that is, every haunting is that way. I think there's a lot. Me and JD were talking from Temple Spirits, and we brought it up as well. There is a a playhouse there where they have plays. They do shows, live shows, stages, and if they see this one certain spirit before a show, they know it's going to be a good show. And that's what falls back onto this is a sign. So maybe some of these entities that we're seeing that are in good places that are bringing good things, that is their happy place, and they do like to go back and revisit their happy place.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that in order to be presented with a demon, I think there's got to be a process. There's an order to it. I don't think you just go out and like, oh my gosh, I saw a demon today. Well, because everybody thinks a lot of things are just demonic. So, but I don't think demons have time to mess with everybody.
No, I agree.
I think there's a process in order to get that far to even be connected with the demon. So, not to say it can't just randomly happen, but yeah.
I think that, everything in this world, this cosmos, whatever you want to call it, is all energy, right? We're all connected with energy, right? So in order for something to be truly demonic and have a really, truly, demon type encounter, I feel that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So that's not something that's just going to be wasted, right? So if you have limited battery, power in your battery bank and you're a demon, you're not just going to go wasting little chunks of your battery on a bunch of little people. You're going to save it up so you can do one big crazy thing to the one thing you want to focus your energy on. So I actually believe that demonic experiences are pretty few and far between, true demonic experiences. And like you said, there's not to say that there isn't different levels. I kind of feel as we are in life, we may be in death, right? So if you're a jokester or you're just an angry person, you're going to be a jokester and an angry person in death, right? So some of that is that way, coming across that way. But demons, I think, really need that takes a lot of energy, and it's focused energy, targeted right in one spot. So it's few and far between.
I like that theory. I really do. So let's talk about the first house. Y'all were talking about, brought it up before, that you had some crazy encounters in, because I'm kind of curious. The purpose of the show is to get people's encounters out there. And one thing I've learned is the more that people share their encounters with these things, other people are going to hear this and go, okay, so I'm not crazy. That happened to me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw that too. So like when I have a guy in Ohio that witnessed, he calls them like Ewoks. They're short little Sasquatch things.
Yeah.
And a guy here in Arkansas as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So the only way that we're going to know this is to get our encounters to share them out there.
Right.
So,
And that's the whole point of what we do. We like to share. We could probably almost take that a step backwards, because the first question anybody asks us, because we are first responders, how many ghosts do we see? Not as often as people would like us to tell them. I had my first encounter before we were dating and got married. I was raising my girls, and I was new at being a firefighter and EMT, and we lived in this smaller rural town, and the community's super, super small. So you don't really know who's related, but y'all know each other. So,
sounds like Arkansas.
yeah, my kids had some friends, and they used to come to my house all the time and sit on the couch and hang out. And so one day I get dispatched to a traffic collision, and unfortunately, it was two of the boys that had sat on my couch and were friends with my kids. Um, they were on a moped and were kind of going down the side road and took a right turn. And then on the other road, their friend was coming up in their truck and didn't see him because there was a lot of bushes on either side of the road. And he drug him for about 30 or 40 feet. Um, my patient, I'm pretty sure he was killed on impact. But we worked it, and it was just a crazy scene. Unfortunately, that community, there's a lot of drug people that do drugs. So people were screaming, they were hitting us, they were spitting on our chiefs. It just got crazy. So obviously, there's a traumatic event. You go home and your nerves are like up here. And so I went to bed, and the house that I lived in, it was a modular home, so it had like the vent fans in the doorways, above the door. So a little light would always shine in from the living room. So I was laying there, and for some reason, I opened my eyes and I saw a big black ball, which people talk about the black ball, and I'm like, well, that's stupid. Well, I saw the black ball, and I jumped out of bed, and I was all freaked out. I'm like, all right, I just went on this call. It's got to take a deep breath. It's probably distress. You try to make excuses for it. Like that didn't really happen. So I I plugged in this little nightlight, and then I stacked all my pillows on my headboard so I could kind of be halfway sitting up. And I'm like, all right. And I had about, a little bit of pillow in front of my face. So I sit up and I lay back down, close my eyes. And all of a sudden it was like somebody took their hand and hit my pillow right in front of my face. And you could hear it and you could feel it, and then a cold wind went across my face, and I jumped up, and I'm, oh my God. And I thought maybe it was a cat, but the cat wasn't in the house, and there was nothing around, nothing to explain it. So I kind of took that as my patient came to tell me that it was going to be okay. But then I didn't really address it again. It's like, all right, that happened. And I didn't really talk about it too much because I didn't want my chief to freak out thinking I was having like some kind of meltdown. So, I kind of just kept it to myself. But yeah, it was about as real as you could get. I mean, you heard the slap, you felt it, and that cold wind going across my face was just, I'll never forget that. That'll stay with me forever. But that's a call that stays with you forever anyway. But yeah, then, nothing ever happened like that again. And then we moved into this ranch house when we met.
Well, let me pause you before we get to the ranch house. I want to go back because you said something really, really strong right here. Talking to the chief.
Yeah.
And there's a huge, even in the military, right? You don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Something happens, I think you don't talk about it because now you're labeled as you get a similar. Me, on the other hand, I already had the weird labels in the military, so I didn't care, except for my encounter that I had. And that one I did not share with anybody, except for, my buddy, the two guys that were with me, and my ex-wife at the time. It was when I got out of the service when I started sharing that story. So, because I don't want to be labeled as that guy. So I completely understand there. So for all you first responders out there, if you want to come on, we can go ahead and change your name so you can get it off your chest.
There's something
and
to bring up about that specific call too in that time frame.
and that was a crazy weekend. Yeah, this was not a normal weekend.
That was actually in the month of February, however many years ago that was, and in our first responder community in the county, we're in Shasta County. It's actually a pretty large county in California. That was dubbed Fatal February because every week there was 2 or 3 absolute crazy things happening. We had around the same, I think it was
It was the same
probably,
weekend. It's in a 5-day period.
there was also like a structure fire with.
So we had the boys got killed on the moped. The very next day, my next call was a house fire where a toddler did not make it. But I think what started that whole weekend was the tomahawk guy.
Yeah, so there was a gentleman that had whatever. Yeah, so
What?
so he decided to this guy decided to take a splitting mall and go down and just start going after people.
Yeah, he thought his roommate took his medication. He was already not all there, and he thought that his roommate took his medication and it set him on this just psycho.
Oh yeah,
path.
so I think it was 3 people in total that he clobbered over the head with this splitting mall, and they were all just outside of like the local bait and tackle store. These people, hanging out, and he kind of like turned himself into a zombie, and did some,
Really?
started eating this guy, right? Police come, the big deal. He lights part of the car and building on fire. It's like, so there's that incident, right? And then a week after that, there's a firefighter that was killed.
Yeah.
Got hit by a car in the middle of a traffic accident on the highway, right? Just a lot of crazy traffic accidents, a lot of crazy things happening. All happen in February. Now it was a short February,
Yeah.
right? Makes me wonder when it kind of brings up the whole other point of, is there points in time, vortexes, things that are aligned that make a whole bunch of things and crazy stuff happen at the same time? Because at least for us personally and in that area, we haven't experienced anything like that again. But then you'll hear about things that happen in other parts of the country where it's like a whole bunch of crazy stuff happens locally, whatever, you name it, state. You're like, interesting kind of things that happen to us during that February. So is there an energy, a different type of energy, a portal vortex, something that's causing people to go crazy and bad things to happen?
And we laugh about it, not because it's funny, just for people that don't understand, like you say, the first responder world or the military world. It's a coping mechanism. So when we're telling these stories, there's this other emotion that kind of laughter kind of masks those feelings of talking about that stuff. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's crazy just to think that those things happen for whatever reason,
Yeah, people, you'll read the news, you'll hear about the traffic accident with someone that's a fatality. You'll read the news about, bad things happening, but that was a lot of crazy bad things that happened all in about a 28-day period. So
it's almost unbelievable. Like you'd think back on it, it's like, did that really happen? Was that?
And and Brenda was directly involved in several of those.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the one incident. So it's like,
I went to a lot of critical debriefings.
So that the reason why I brought that up is because you talk about no one really wants to go talk to their chief. That month, there was what they call critical incident stress debriefing, or a moment where you can all get together and express yourself, a chance to kind of, de-stress your emotions. And I think they put them together, and I don't think a single person out of the entire month, out of any of the several different departments, law enforcement agencies, everything, nobody participated. Nobody did. They put them together and nobody showed up.
They did put me on a 2-week break because apparently the way I was sitting. So I guess I was sitting like this.
Yeah, they force you to be there, but you don't have to share, right? You just have to be in the room, right? So everybody was there, but nobody shared. So it's kind of like, makes you think.
Yeah, the only thing I shared is it's like, we have pagers at home, and if you don't shut them off, you'll hear all the radio traffic. And when the boys got hit on the moped, my girls were home with their friends and they heard all the traffic. So I get hysterical phone calls, so it was a crazy month. It was a lot going on. But like Ryan said, does that, are there these weird vortexes that cause multiple things to happen in such a short span of time?
Just a different weird feeling in the air. that month. So it's
Yeah.
like she had her, was that your very first ever paranormal experience? It was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, besides shadows. I see shadows all the time, but aside from that, yeah, that was my first, like, oh, there's something more in the world than just waking up and
I
doing your
see
daily.
shadows all the time. It's no big deal.
I mean, if I could go back in time, I'd go back in time and go ask every one of those other first responder type people if they had any experiences, to try to put together if there was some kind of energy connection or something going on.
I'm
Just
with you
an
on that
interesting
one.
thought.
It's great. I'll tell you what, when we do finish up, stay, because I'll get the dates and everything if you can pull them up. And Chris is really, really good at researching, so we might be able to pull some stuff up for you as well. Because now you got me curious about it. I'm like, I want to know. But that has some other theories too that we'll talk about off the air as well.
All right.
So, but okay, so we move into the ranch house after this. So we have crazy February. Guys with tomahawks. Unfortunately, people are passing away. And the black ball thing, no one wants to talk about it. You guys meet, fall madly in love, get married, and move into this ranch house.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
All right.
Okay, so
I'm paying attention.
let's set the record straight. I kind of moved us in that night because Ryan decided to get the flu, and I hate moving. And
yeah.
so,
Way to go, Ryan.
so this ranch house this sits on the outside of town, and it's on a cow farm, like a bull farm. There's tons of cows out
So
there.
it's a working cattle ranch.
Yeah. So at nighttime it gets really dark. So the first night that we moved in there, and it's 2 stories. It's got the window upstairs that you think you're going to see some kind of crazy thing up there, like Psycho. Has a Psycho window.
Yeah, it's the quintessential. It's what you would think a haunted house looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a 100-year-old house. The property used to be a fruit farm or an apple orchard, and then it became a cattle ranch. So Ryan conveniently gets sick, and me and my girls there, and it's dark, and I'm kind of scared, and it's got this scary basement too where the furnace was. And so I get like all our snacks, and we're like, oh, we're just going to stay in the one room because, it's kind of creepy out here. And we go in the room, we get all set up, and I forget something. I don't know if it was water or whatever, but I go out the door and it's locked. And this is before we realized it was haunted. So the first night, the door locks on me. You can't get it unlocked. There's no lock. So I had to call Ryan to come out and get us out.
Yeah, so I get this frantic phone call that they're locked in the bedroom. It's the first time we've been in this house. And we're renting the house. It's, we don't know a whole lot about it other than we found out more about it later, right? But it was built off the trees from the land, right, in 1910. So it's yeah, it's got the basement is big enough because at the time they had servants. So it's actually like an apartment in the basement. There's bedrooms, there's a bathroom, there's a kitchen, the wood burning furnace, all of that's in the basement. That's where the servants lived. Right. So
at this point, it was all decrepit.
But that's all kind of falling apart. But the doorknob was from 1910, right? It's just like the old skeleton keys. Like it's not a normal. So I actually had to take the door apart to get them out because I could not figure out how to get this doorknob to unlock. And there's no key to it or anything. Trying the different screwdrivers, doing everything I could without completely damaging it. I had to take the whole door off to get them out of the bedroom. So whatever was in there really wanted it to be in there. If this might connect a little bit, we lived there for 1 year. That was our lease. Fast forward to when the lease was over, talking with the owner, we're giving him the keys back. That specific room, they called it the bowling alley room because it was really long and skinny. And he had friends that had stayed the night with him, and they all had really crazy, negative paranormal experiences in that room. So, but we didn't know that at the time.
But the basement was the scariest because behind the furnace, when you go down into it, it's what's that word? It's sequential haunted basement. You go down the stairs and it's like a scary movie.
Quintessential.
You go down there and you just feel like there's somebody behind you the whole time. And you're just like, I'm just going to build this fire. And behind the furnace was like this dirt area. Must have been maybe a wine cellar. And it had old artifacts back there, like old Coke bottles, old stuff.
It
really
for sure was like a root cellar at some point because they had, and there was wine bottles in there that had like 1920 dates on them. And I did at that point, it's like, I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah,
We're just going to leave everything here. We actually kind of put some plywood up and kind of boarded it off. Like, this area is separate. Nobody's going in there. No one's going to play with it. The kids aren't going to play with it.
Yeah. So you'd be building that fire and you just felt like somebody's there the whole time. And you just build that fire and you went looking, you'd run upstairs and slam the door because it was spooky.
Take the dog with you every time.
Take the dog. It was spooky. It was scary.
How'd the dog react to it?
The dogs, when we were living there, I didn't put two and two together until after we had the experience when we were moving out of it, my experience. And then I started to think back. It's like the dogs reacted a lot. They would stare at things, growl at things. And I just figured, there's cows out there, right? There's cows and bulls and the cows are everywhere. And then the property line, the rear of the property line, which was probably maybe 150 yards from the back of the house, there was a creek. On the other side of the creek is just open land, right? So, it could be, there was foxes running around the property. It's like maybe there's a mountain lion, maybe it's foxes, whatever the dogs are growling at. Okay, I didn't put two and two together until afterwards. So it's like we spend our year living there and we're moving out at this point. And I've got a friend of mine who went to paramedic school with me. So it's like a good buddy of mine. Come over to help move some stuff. And the first experience that we had is I had this desk. We piled all this crap on it and we're kind of like, two birds with one stone. I'm going to carry all this crap on top of the desk, right? So we had an old telephone, right? So we're old enough to remember the corded telephones that don't take batteries, don't need anything, right? They just plug into the wall, curly Q, cord. Yeah, so I had one of those, and we had it. The phone line was wrapped all the way around it. It was like a 10-foot line, so it's tightly wrapped up, sitting at the very top of this pile of stuff on top of this desk. We picked the desk up and we're walking, and maybe 3 feet after we started walking, the phone started to ring. Standard bell, right? Just a bell ringing. It's like, what is going on? We look at each other and we're like confused. We put the thing down. It's ringing this whole time, right? I'm unwrapping it as it's ringing. I answered it, said hello, and there was nothing, right? So that was the first experience. We're like, okay, that's weird. Let's just hurry up and get the rest of this load out, put it in the trailer, the carport outside. So we're taking this load of stuff out to the trailer, and it starts absolute dumping hail. It's just, the hail is coming down like, not big hail, but it's just like loud, thunderous hail falling everywhere, right? For like a good minute and a half, 2 minutes, something like that, roughly. And then it just stops. And then you look out across the property, and the driveway is probably maybe 200, 300 yards long. It's a long driveway. So as you look out there, you can clearly see where the line was, where the hail started and stopped. And as we looked around the property, it was only hailing on us and our house. It wasn't hailing. There was no wet water, and it was sunny everywhere else. There was a house next door, which is the ranch hand, the guy that worked the ranch. There was no hail on his house but there was hail on the ground where we were at. Just kind of randomly after the phone thing.
Yeah, and the last day that I was in there doing stuff, I think it was the day before that happened. I'd packed up a bunch of stuff and I was just doing a last minute look through, and they had little doors in the bedroom. We called them the midget doors, and there's extra storage, I guess, in the house. Or
it's like the void spaces around the building. It's like a little 2-foot door you can open to get into, like, it's basically an attic space, but next to the room.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So they had those all through the house, and they had the latches, and they weren't really easy to open or close because they're old, And so I went up, I checked everything, made sure they were all closed, went back downstairs, and I hear a pop. I'm like, oh, that's weird. So I go back upstairs, and all the midget doors are open. So
and each bedroom had at least one door, and they were all open.
Yeah, it was weird. So I left.
Yeah, I want to too.
We finished gathering the most of our stuff, and then I went back one time to get the last little truckload of stuff out of the basement. And it was just me. I had the dog with me. I had an old F-150. I backed it around, loaded all the stuff into it, put the dog in the truck. And as we're coming, I was in the back of the house. As I'm driving around the front of the house, every hair is up on him, and he is growling and barking like he wants to kill something that's behind us. Now it's dusk. At the time, it's just starting to get dark. It's around 5:30-ish at the time. And I look over my shoulder at the house, and I could see a black apparition in the upper window. And that upper
Mm.
window is a room, and that room was very interesting because
Yeah.
it had a lot of angles and weird. It wasn't just a square or rectangle room.
Yeah, it was weird.
So you'd walk into the entry door to the room, and it was like a small little nook. So it's like maybe like a 5x5 little square area, and then it would shoot off into the rest of the room, which was like maybe a 12x12 room. Right. So it had like these weird angles, and the ceiling to the wall was also angled, like at a 45. Right. So that's where the
Okay.
roof line would be. So you're walking around there. It's not just straight corners. Everything's angled. And that's the
Like
only room that was
Winchester
like that.
house. We had our own Winchester house
Yeah.
in the bedroom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like it.
But that
So
was
you
the
said it was a
room.
figure? You saw a figure though?
I saw a black figure. I
Mhm.
couldn't make out anything other than head and shoulders, right? I couldn't see a face. I couldn't tell if there was hair. And of course, I didn't look at it very long, so it was, shooting
Did you
gravel.
notice your camera? Did you notice when you're talking about that, your camera just kind of went out of focus and into focus?
No, I did not.
No kidding. Yeah, while you're talking, just a
Yeah.
few seconds ago, yeah, it was as you were talking about the head and shoulders, as you're describing that part of your camera.
Well, this building is haunted. This is
Yeah, we're sitting in a haunted building as well. So
it's a 100-year-old
Yay.
historical building.
yeah, yeah, we're just surrounded by it. We can't get away from it. But that was the experience that I had that solidified that there's something else going on, that there's paranormal activity, right? And then we kind of moved on with our lives for a while, right? And then, maybe 2 years after that is when it all kind of resurfaced
Yeah.
with all the paranormal activity. So, yeah, that was like my first encounter with it.
Yeah, our house now is very active. We live in our house now that's super active. So,
I interviewed a lady, and her episode's already aired, and while she was talking, it was funny because we're talking about the screens, how we're looking at each other right now. She moved her hand this way, and it was crazy because when she moved her hand like this, there had been no little particles, no dust, no nothing floating around. This orb just goes. And we were talking during in the morning. It's going, did you guys see that orb? She goes,
that
well,
would
the
be our
house is
house.
haunted. And I'm like going, so now I'm looking behind you guys. Just something, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. There might be. I mean, the building we're in was built in the 1900s.
Yeah.
And it was one of the original schools in the downtown city of Reading. So it's a historical landmark, and now it's office suites. So that's
cool as that.
where we're at.
Well, let's talk about, okay, so now we're in the new place and the activity ramps back up again.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's where we were at when we kind of started with everything. That's where we were when COVID started and all that stuff, right? Living in this specific house. So, and then some things happen in our personal lives that kind of, I don't know how to say it.
It kind of slingshotted us to where we're
Yeah.
at now. So my dad was an old crusty logger, and he passed away in April of 22. And I was there. He went into full renal failure, and I sat in hospice with him until he passed away. So we brought his ashes home, and Ryan can kind of start that one.
Well, and that was in Idaho, right? Dad lived in Idaho.
Yeah.
So then we brought everything home. A little bit of time goes by, maybe a month or so goes by. And at the time, Brenda's still working on the ambulance. So she's working a 48-hour shift, right? So she's gone for 2 days at a time. I'm also working 48-hour shifts. So we're like barely seeing each other. We're kind of, in passing, high five. I got the kids, you're going to work type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's late, the job that I do, I don't sleep. So it's 11:30, midnight, something like that. And I'm watching TV. All the grandkids are in bed, they're asleep. And I'm watching Axeman, which is like the logging show, right? It's just kind of like killing time, just not really paying attention to it, but I am type of thing, right? Snacking on some chips or whatever. And we had all the kids' toys, they've got like a little police car that is automated, right? You press down on the light bar and the siren goes off. You have to actually push on it, and it's been through the ringer, has been drowned in the bathtub a couple times. So it's not like this thing actually works randomly on its own. Okay. So I'm watching this logging show and the police car goes off. And my first thought, now we've started to get into the paranormal, paying attention to what's going on. So it's like, boom, I'm getting the camera out. I'm getting a spirit bot. I'm grabbing stuff, right? They come out there and I can't get it to replicate. Now, Brenda's dad, logger, but he also wasn't a big fan of law enforcement either, and he had made that very well known, especially the last few conversations we had before he passed away. We had some in-depth conversations about his feelings about law enforcement, right? So I take that as a sign, right? His ashes are in the other room. I'm watching a logging show. Police car goes off. But I'm asking it to happen. I'm calling him by name, say, do this again. Nothing, right? Nothing. It happens again, but not for another couple weeks, right? So that happens multiple times. We also have more animated cars and things like that were going off. Random things falling off out of the cabinets that shouldn't, right? I mean, stuff that's been in the cabinet in the kitchen there for like 2 years that hasn't moved shouldn't just randomly open the cabinet and fall out on the floor. But things like that were happening. We kind of attributed to, all right, well, it's Ed, and his ashes are here. Maybe that's causing it. So that was kind of like the first start of stuff in the house. And then as I started doing research on our house, I find out that the previous owners had an older daughter that was in her 30s that was living with them, and she actually, what they call in our world, coded, right? So she died, right? So her heart stopped. My fire department, which I work where I live, my fire department responded to her, worked to the code. They transported her to the hospital where she eventually passed away. But she was dead in the hallway. And when we start thinking about our house, the hallway is very energetic and very active.
Yeah.
So I've heard voices in the hallway.
Yep.
Shadows, all sorts of stuff in the hallway. So as we're starting to learn this information, we're starting to put some of these pieces together to try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So
that was interesting. I'd kind of fast forward, unless you have questions about that.
Well, that kind of opened up our journey too. So at this point, it's like, all right, now we're not just going to, use the cheap, stuff we bought offline. Now we're actually going to, all right, let's invest in some proper equipment, some proper cameras, some different things. So we started investing and trying to learn how to use all this stuff. So we're doing a lot of practice and play in our house in the middle of the night, right? Kids go to bed. It's like, all right, we got to learn our cameras. Let's play with them. We got to learn our equipment. We're going to practice with it. So little things are starting to pop up as we're doing that.
Yeah, we were getting little light anomalies and, still trying to discount it all. But yeah, we've started catching little light anomalies and little different things in the camera.
And we're very much, we like to look at every visual evidence we capture, at least in our mind, is automatically not true. So we're not trying to disprove it, but we're trying to prove that it's actually real by looking at every opportunity we can to say that it's not real. So that when we label something an orb or a light anomaly, that's because we've ran through the ringer of everything we could possibly explanation to rule it that it's camera flare or dust or bugs or whatever you want to call it. We've ruled it.
You just had one go right over your chest.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
It caught my attention.
Yeah, I spend hours going over footage and stuff. I spend a lot of time. It's probably why I can't see now.
Yeah, so it knows we're trying to tell them we're trying to debunk you, and now you're showing yourself.
Well, on that token too, though, I mean, we're the same way when we go and do our stuff. We really are. I'm the biggest believer, but I'm the biggest skeptic when it comes to everything, and I like it that way, to be honest with you. But you said you were hearing voices in the hallway. So you said voices. That means there's more than one voice you were hearing. Could you hear what they were saying? Anything, or just kind of like
I think most of the time they're just like high pitch. You want to put a word to it, but they're not that clear.
To me, it sounds like it's a female trying to talk.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a female voice. I can't make out the actual words every time. It's very breezy, breathy type of voice, but it's a female in nature.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that brings up a couple of things. So that, my first thought is it this lady that basically died in this hallway? Is it something connected to the land? We also have a lot of Native American stuff around us. Or is it something else that we'll get into here in a minute that could potentially be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So you said the car went off again. The police car did. Where was it at when it went the second time? What was going on with that situation?
So all of that stuff was kind of lined up in our living room under our TV. That's where it's like the catch-all spot for the kids to put all of their toys. It's kind of like the collection. When we're tired of it being in the middle of the living room, it's just kind of swept up, semi-organized, right? But that sitting in the same general areas it always has been. And then I did move it, right, to a different part of the living room. And so maybe same generalized area, but different side of the room, right? And it went off on both sides.
Were you watching another show or something? I mean, do you remember what you were
to be
doing?
honest, the second time it went off, I was in the kitchen, which is just adjacent to that room. So I wasn't even
Okay.
in the room. TV was on. I couldn't tell you what was on the TV. I have no idea. And again,
Yeah,
it
I'm
was
with you
late
on that
night,
one.
right? It's
Okay.
most of this stuff has happened late night. Doesn't really happen
Right.
during the day. One encounter did happen during the day. I'll share that in a minute.
Now, Miss Brenda, did you ever hear the police car go off or anything?
I did not know. I heard, no, but we have a ball. It's the ABC ball, and it's a cloth ball, and you have to hit it for the A. It'll go A, B, C, but you have to hit it to do the
Yeah.
letters. And it doesn't go off very easy. You have to give it a good hit. It's not really a good kid's toy, but it's a cloth. It's like a pillow. And this was after he was telling me all this stuff. And I was walking from the back bedroom through the living room to the kitchen, and that ball was sitting there. And I walked by and it giggled. And there's no giggling in the ball. It's just strictly ABC. No giggling, no sentences, no words. And it giggled, and I stopped. And I went, oh my God.
They got to kick the ball. I'm not going to lie. That would have been a kickball.
Oh
Yeah.
man, we beat the heck out of that ball to try to see if it'll do anything other than the letters.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Be outside.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. It would be outside.
It's still in the house.
It hasn't gone off
Why not?
since.
It hasn't got off since then that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really weird.
So you said the covers you would have stuff falling out. You go open up the covers and things would fall out when you'd open it up, right? So like just dishes, or is it like, seasonings? I mean, food stuff,
So one of our cupboards is the spice cupboard, right? And there's like a small little shelf at the very top, which in my opinion, I don't know why they built it that way. It's kind of useless because it's only like 2 inches from the top of the shelf. You can't put much in there, right? So I've got a bag that has some like wooden skewers for making shish kebabs, right?
Yeah.
That bag has just been sitting in there,
Yeah.
and it's flat in there. So you can see when you look at the bag, you can see the ends of the little spikes, right? So the bag's sitting in there, right? That bag fell out. Now, I'm 99% positive that the cupboard was closed. When I went to go look at it, because I heard it, the cupboard was open and the bag was on the counter with most of the skewers spilled out on the counter on the floor.
Yeah, and there's no ventilation. There's no air conditioning vent there. There's no anything that would cause anything to make it fall out like that. And they've been sitting there closer to the edge and have never fallen out before. So
yeah, I mean they're 8-inch long, right? So if you were to pull the bag out slowly, it would take a while before it got to that balance point before it would tip over. So something had to have forced it,
pushed it
there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. As soon as you were opening. Yeah. Okay. Now, that's what I was curious about when you're talking about things that are falling out. I was curious what was falling out of the cupboards.
There's that, and then there was a bag of I guess they're kind of croutons, like what you would make your stuffing for Thanksgiving dinner out of, but like a Costco size, like a large bag, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And that was in the pantry. That thing had been sitting there for a while. We never used it, never found an opportunity to use it. And that had been sitting in the pantry, which is just around the corner from where this cabinet with the wooden skewers is. And that bag fell on the floor randomly. Nobody in the kitchen. I heard it when I was sitting in the living room, went to go investigate what I heard, and that was on the ground. Right. And there's nothing that would shake it. There was no activity going on. It's the middle of the night, early night, I think at that point, that one was like maybe 9:00 at night when that had happened. So yeah, small little things like that kind of leading up to other things.
Yeah.
All right. Well, carry on. I just had some questions there. Okay. You told me to ask questions. So there you go. All
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So 7 months later, unfortunately, my oldest daughter was autistic, and she suffered a mental health crisis, and she became homeless. And the state kind of just let her deteriorate out there. They wouldn't let me do anything or step in to help her. So she ended up getting hit by a car and was killed. So that's how we acquired her 3 children. So we adopted her 3 kids. But so the kind of weird thing about that is, dealing with that kind of stuff is very traumatic. But the night before she died, I had a dream, and it was a pretty graphic dream. And I'd gotten really familiar with the homeless camps, went down there. We'd been in every camp, probably know every person out there, so they knew who I was. And but this dream was I was running through the camps because I couldn't find her, and I'm just going to all these people and probably not using great language and asking, "Where's Leanne? Where's Leanne?" And they're like, "I don't know." And then I got to her boyfriend that was out there, and I'm like, "Have you seen Leanne?" He goes, "No, I haven't seen her." Well, I ended up running more, and then I find her, and I'm not going to detail that, but I find her, and it wasn't good. And then I just kind of wake up, and I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. But she called me the next day after that dream, and she needed some money, and I'm like, "I don't have any money to give you." And I hung up, and I'm like, called her back. I'm like, "All right, I'll be right down." So I went down there, and we had that conversation that most people don't get. Like, "I love you. I'm sorry this is happening. We'll fix it. Come home. Grandma wants you to come to Thanksgiving. You can bring your boyfriend." And she agreed. And 4 hours later, she was gone. So then we brought her ashes home, and things kind of took a new turn in the house. So
And there's some things to say about that too, because we live in a world that semi understands the human brain, right? So mental health research, autistic research has come a long way in the last 50 years, right, to where we're at. But people still don't completely understand it. And then I think there's a tie to some biblical stuff there too, because some of the things that she would say, um, like sitting next to the river, helping souls pass, things like that she was experiencing. Now, is that mental health? Is it schizophrenia? Whatever you want to call it, I don't know. I think the brain is something that we will never completely understand.
And
It's one
she
of God's creations that's very unique, and I don't care what kind of a doctor you are, you'll never completely
Yeah,
understand.
and she also her room was the weird room
Yes. So where I saw that apparition, that's where she lived. That was her room, and she spent a lot of time in that room because she was just kind of very, kind of a homebody. That's where she liked to stay.
yeah, so I
So
kind of think her mental health crisis could have started there. I kind of think there's a tie there too.
we think
But
that there was some, autistic tendencies, but then I think it was potentiated by maybe some, I don't want to call it demonic because we had that conversation before, but, some things we'll just call it of the dark, right? Not of the light, right? And I think she battled with that, with the light back and forth. And, you know, that's why she kind of ended up on the street and everything. And we've been taking care of her kids kind of since the beginning. So they've always lived with us. We've been the permanent guardians and all that stuff, take care of the kids. And, it wasn't like
she
she wasn't a bad
yeah,
person,
she was a good
right? She's not a
mom.
criminal. She was a good mom. She loved her kids very much. She just didn't have the abilities to provide everything that they needed. So we stepped in to help with that. But then after this tragedy of her getting run over, um, politics aside, like you look at it and you go, man, what was going on with her? What was going on in her brain? I mean, only God knows. But I think we have a little bit of some of it kind of makes sense because of some of the other things that happened.
Yeah, and it's not something like if you'd asked me then, did I thought this would ever happen? Absolutely not. This was like out of left field. Um, this, yeah, we. I was a good single mom. It wasn't like my lack of not being a good parent. It just came out of left field. It
Yeah, it
just,
just kind of happened all of a sudden with kind of zero explanation, right? And it was after we lived in that ranch house
yeah.
that those types of things started to happen. Um, so then, if other experiences, we got a new camera.
Hmm.
So we're playing with this new camera, and we decided to, we're trying to learn this brand new camera. Um, so we set some stuff up in our living room. Again, it's late at night. All the grandkids are in bed sleeping, and we bring some of her ashes out.
Yeah, I have a little urn of her ashes, and when she was in the was that? Are you talking about? You're talking about the event, right?
Yes.
So when we were in the ER, Ryan, for whatever reason, cut a locket of Leanne's hair off, and I wrapped it up and I put it away. And I never took it out. I never unwrapped it. It always stayed in that tissue.
Yeah. So that,
And,
let me say something real quick. So because of our jobs and all the people we know and the things that we do, we were able to we were very fortunate in the fact that we were able to go into the emergency room before all of the official stuff had to happen. Right. So we were able to be with her. We were able to clean her up and, get her jewelry off of her, different things like that. In typical, they keep family away until the coroner does what the coroner does, right? And all of that stuff becomes evidence essentially, right? So you don't get to mess with that. But we were, because, I've been
I wear
around
her
for a long
rings.
time. We were able to get her rings off of her. We were able to get a little locket of her hair,
These are her
all
rings.
that stuff that most people don't get to have. So if you want to talk about energy and connection, that was from the source essentially. So that kind of makes sense. So we had her ashes, we had a locket of her hair, and then one of her kind of favorite little stuffed animal things.
Yeah. And we kind of put it out because we got the camera, we got the new camera, and we weren't really catching anything. And we're like, oh, this is kind of bored. And we never did that before. So we're like, oh, let's try it. Who knows? You never know. So we put it out all on the floor in the living room floor. And then we just started asking questions.
So it's infrared, it's dark. So it's dark in the room. Brenda's sitting in the living room. She's got an SB7 spirit box. And we're filming, right? And I think we have like an EMF reader out or something too.
I think that a REM pod.
The REM pod was out. Just a couple things just kind of sat there. And the spirit box is running, and Brenda's asking questions and talking to her. I think he asked her to do something like,
So Leanne was like a poker. It's like, hey, mom. She was a poker. And I was like, hey, Leanne, why don't you come out and poke my shoulder like you do? And then
I witnessed a manifestation come out of the carpet.
By her stuff.
It came out of her carpet. The only way I can describe it is kind of like flowing smoke, but organized in like a long tube. But it came out of the carpet and floated around, and it passed kind of between. I'm holding the camera like this, right? So it passed between, like under my armpit, and I felt the energy and the coldness and everything pass through me, and I wasn't scared. But the way I was talking was almost like when you get the wind knocked out of you and you're trying to get it back and talk. So it wasn't coming out when I'm trying to tell Brenda, oh man, I see something. I got to tell you this, but it wasn't coming out right. And it sounds really bad when you watch the video, but she's looking at me like, what are you doing? You're like a weirdo. Stop acting like that.
Because he never reacts.
I have no idea what I just saw.
Yeah, he never reacts to anything because we just don't. And I'm like, you need to calm down.
Typical wife, like, just be quiet, but no, I see something important. And then when we start reviewing this footage later, because of course we've watched this video a million times, right? Now we can see another little orb that's following it. And that kind of goes back to what we think is, so Leanne had a stillborn baby also in her life. And her name was Hannah. And we don't have Hannah's ashes, but we have all of her personal items that they used for her
funeral and
funeral
stuff like that. Her losing Hannah was, so to speak, the kind of the nail in the coffin, for lack of better words.
That's a lot of her mental health.
That's when Leanne. That's when she declined and she never came back. Was when she lost Hannah.
So every time, we have this thing that manifests out of the carpet, and falling behind it is a smaller orb that moves in a childlike fashion.
Yeah.
And as we start going back and reviewing footage from before this event happened, and then as we've continued to have footage from after the event happened, we've always noticed a large orb and a smaller orb. The smaller orb was always following.
Yeah.
So we believe that manifestation was Leanne reacting to mom, and that her baby Hannah is with her and following her around. And the video is on our YouTube page. You can watch it. It's clear as day that something manifests out of the carpet. First time I've ever seen that, and it's very unique and very special.
Yeah.
Hook, line, and sinker. That was the moment that it's like, now we actually need to truly be serious about all of this stuff and do justice and do it the right way. So crazy experience.
Wow. Speechless. I just want to say first off, I'm truly sorry. very lost. I really am. So as a dad, I can't imagine going through that. However, okay, let me go back. All right, so I'm still stuck on the thing coming out the carpet.
She's at peace now. So
she's at peace now. We warned you. You might need your tissue.
But no, she was suffering, and as much as I hate this, and I'm changed forever. You'll be changed forever when you lose a child. But I know she's in a better place. She's not suffering anymore. So, and her kids are being taken care of. They're not in the system and never have been, never will be. That's why we adopted them.
Well, they've got you. So first off, I do want to say something. One, you made a comment earlier. My mom was a single mom for quite a while until I met my stepdad, and truly blessed and lucky to have, being raised by him. And my mom worked her tail off. And not one point in time looking back was I ever angry or upset with my mom always being at work and what she was doing. It's one of those weird things. When the oldest one, you kind of know that. You mentioned though the ranch house. We keep going back to the ranch house now. And she lived in the weird room where you saw the figure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys had a chance to do any research on the property, about the property, the history of the place, or anything like that from the owner, talk with the owner, trying to break it down?
So
Because if you think about it, you have the best open door right now. Hey guys, how are you? We're doing this whole entire cool thing called, paranormal triage, and we have some weird stuff happen, and you did too. Can we come in and just, check out the house?
Yeah. So that thought has crossed my mind. Absolutely. And we have done a bunch of research and talked with the owners. The owners people are currently living in there that are renters and stuff like that. So we'd have to find our opportunity when it's no longer people are living in there in order to go in and do an investigation. So it stems from, it was originally an orchard. The house was built like 1910. They built it out of the material from the land. It transitioned in like the 1930s roughly to a cattle ranch. And that's when the dog is reacting to something.
So the sun's starting to come out, and the squirrels are coming out. And one of my dogs has declared, the bigger one, Jack, has declared war on the squirrels. They seem to know this, so they will come right by the door and look.
Mm-hmm. They taunt.
Like a squirrel will. Nugget, who was on the live show yesterday, who's always on the live show, he'll just go running out there with him because, like, okay, what are we doing? Oh, the squirrel, it's right there. I don't think Nugget would know what to do with squirrels if he caught it. So Jack, on the other hand, no, you're okay. All right, sorry about that.
Yeah,
so it was made out of the wood on the land. The land. All right, go ahead.
And the cattle industry is a very cutthroat industry, right? So I can only imagine the life that these people lived working cattle ranches, even in the mid 1900s. It's still it couldn't have been an easy life, right? And that house was the house that that wasn't the worker's house. It's not the ranch hand house. It was built at the time. It was built basically to be a mansion.
Yeah.
Right. Servant quarters at the basement. And then the rest of it is supposed to be. That was the hierarchy of the family that ran the cattle ranch, and that family still owns that cattle ranch to this day, and they own about 80% of the cattle in this area. So there's quite a bit of cattle ranching.
They're a very large cattle family.
So yeah, I've thought about reaching out to him. He's a prominent figure, in politics and other things like that around here, which is not probably the best thing, but trying to get in there to do the investigation. When the time's right, we might be able to weasel our way into that one.
And you have to remember that we're in California, so we sit on a lot of Native American land, and there was a lot of war back then, a lot of killing.
On that one, I tell everybody this: it's almost like our country was founded on Indian burial ground.
Yeah,
yeah, basically, and there's a lot of bad blood between the different Native tribes in the area.
Yeah,
they're all kind of fighting over different recognition and different land rights and different things like that. So there's a lot of hostility when you even to just sit down and talk with some of the elders of the different tribes to get history. There's a little bit of hostility and a lot of conflicting information.
Yeah,
it's hard to get the right information.
No, I agree. I've been lucky enough to interview, two folks from the First Nations, and they were, it was great episodes, breaking down some of their legends of lore and, with Sasquatch and some other, creatures. But so when y'all lived there for 1 year, did your daughter ever complain about anything in the room, anything at all, other than that one time the door was locked or not?
No, my youngest daughter was in the bowling room where, past people had experiences. She didn't like it in there. She said it was scary.
She wouldn't sleep in there without the dog. Most of the time, she would sleep like in the couch or something. But the room that had the apparition and where Leanne stayed, she didn't say anything negative about it, and that's where she spent most of her time.
I think Leanne just absorbed that stuff. I think she was super open-minded. She had an old soul. I don't think she was really normal for her age as far as her likes. She was really into antiques. We used to go antiquing all the time, and she just connected to old stuff. Like, she was a big fan of Anne Frank. I don't know how. Her knowledge was very odd because the stuff that she knew, I don't even know where you learn this stuff because I don't even know this stuff. I mean, she couldn't tell you how to bake a cake, but she could tell you about an F fighter airplane, down to how it ran. It's like, I don't even know where you know this stuff from because we were just snowboarders and hillbillies.
What you brought up the Anne Frank thing, and you brought up this was the upper part of the house, right? It was right there
Yeah.
at the roof line and everything. So I wonder maybe she associated herself sometimes with Anne,
I
with
didn't think
Anne
about
Frank.
that. That's a good
You know what I
point.
mean? Being up there. So did she ever read like Flowers in the Attic or anything like that at all? You know what I'm talking? You remember that book series?
We had that book in my house, but I couldn't tell you if she read it or not. But like I said,
Okay.
she would read stuff that I didn't even know about, like, and new stuff that I didn't know about. And yeah.
Well, maybe
Her
when y'all moved in, the entity was there,
Mhm.
and slowly over time, it helped to isolate her and make her feel isolated. It was a feeling of isolation, to where that's where she felt that she needed. How was her behavior at school at the time?
Well, she was a good kid. She never really got in trouble. My kids were really good. I felt really lucky compared to what all the other kids were doing. They were good kids. She just didn't do school very well. She graduated with a 1.8, but she graduated herself. She homeschooled a couple times. But no, she wasn't, to
Did
me.
she not want to go to school, or I mean,
No, she liked school. She just didn't do well in school. Her brain couldn't process as fast as the class wanted her to. So, like, kids like her, they stick them in what they call the bad kids class and hand them a packet, and that's how they learn. So,
okay.
at the time, I didn't know it was that bad, but looking back on it now, now that I have
Well,
more.
I'm just curious too, though, because even that 1 year there with that, okay. So when you guys moved to the new house, I mean, how does she feel about the move?
So she was fine with it.
she was
Well,
okay. Well,
that's kind of a long story. Well,
no, because that's when we moved to Partridge. So I don't think there was anything that bad about the move.
no.
I think she just already had whatever going on. Like, it was kinda status quo, same thing. She would just kinda stay in her room at that place too.
Well, her friends stayed, she has a second mom, they call her second mom. It was one of her boyfriend's moms, and she tells me stories about Leanne all the time after graduation and after having John, because she had John when she was 19, and this is after she kinda started deteriorating a little bit. Not being bad, but just being a little bit more disheveled, I guess you could say. But her brain would never rest. Like, the second mom said she would always show up in the middle of the night at her house, and she's like, "You need to have John home and in bed." And she goes, "Well, I can't sleep. I can't sleep." So she would kind of start. I think she started wandering, but I don't think we really noticed it that much. But now looking back on it, yeah, she started to wander a little bit. Couldn't sleep, wandering around, showing up at people's houses at different times for different reasons, not for really any good reason at odd times of the night.
And her oldest, John, who's now 12, he was born when we were living in that house.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the house he came home from the hospital in.
Yeah, and she
Okay.
may had a little postpartum that we missed because
Well, it's just one, yeah. And so when y'all had decided to move from that location to the next one, how does she feel about moving from that house, the ranch house?
she was actually good. She actually went to EMT class. She
And
went to
she started to
college.
get better.
Yeah, she started to get a little better.
After y'all moved?
Yeah.
Yes.
Something about that house.
Yeah, she started to get better. She started to get more involved in things, started to, she went back to school. She took an EMT class. She, was more involved in the family things going on, more involved in John, spending time with John and things like that. So it was, it's definitely not the same person.
Yeah.
In a better way.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So how is John? John's good. No problems with John.
No, he's a smelly 13-year-old.
Yeah, I think every boy 13 is smelly.
Yeah, I had girls, so this smell is like a little more than I can handle. I'm like, do boys normally smell like this? Because this is
Yeah.
girl.
They're all like that.
But no, he's a good kid. He's a lot like Leanne. He's a little bit introverted. Very smart though. He's homeschooling. But he's another one. He absorbs knowledge, not the everyday bake a cake knowledge, but just other stuff like Leanne. They have this weird knowledgeable brain,
And he has all of our kids in the house have had some experiences too of the paranormal type that they've told us about. Some of it, it's like, coming from the 4-year-old, you got to really, pay attention to that. But John had experiences. He's got a light that's like the touch light that will randomly go on and off in his room at certain times of the night. And he also, it's hard for him to sleep. He's a night owl.
Yeah.
Right. So when he was doing regular school, it was impossible just because no matter what we did, no matter what we tried, he just does not like to sleep in the middle of the night.
Oh, my daughter.
So our youngest one, when we first brought Leanne home, our youngest one, Judith, she would look up in the ceiling all the time or look down the hallway or do weird things, stop and go, hi, and then just go back to watching TV.
And she didn't know, the youngest one didn't know her mom very well, right? Because when she was born, we brought her home from the hospital as the guardians, right? So she didn't really have a whole lot of interactions or experiences, right? Because, at this point, how old was Judith? Yeah, so year and a half, something like that. So it's like she really doesn't have connections. Obviously, the 12-year-old and the 6-year-old have a little bit more connections, but the little one just very nonchalant, hi, and what they say they see, it's like, oh, what did she say? What did Robin say? It was one of them about the teeth. There was like the black shadow in the corner and it had teeth.
Yeah. They talk about the black shadow in the bedroom with teeth. It has big teeth.
Yeah, big teeth.
But
that's not scary at all.
But one time, she came out in the hallway crying.
Yes, because of the monster with the teeth.
But it wasn't the one time.
Okay, yeah. So we had put her in. The girls share a room. They have bunk beds, and they're little escape artists. We don't want them to go running down the street, right? So we have those little doorknob things you put on, or only adults are able to do it. Most kids end up becoming escape artists, that type of stuff, right? But she couldn't do it. She couldn't manipulate the door. Put her in there, put her back to bed. I think she had cried or something on the baby monitor we had heard. Put her back to bed. And I don't know how many hours later, but we were in bed.
Yeah, we were asleep. It was middle of the night.
And we woke up to her crying in the hallway. Right. So we go out there to get her, and the bedroom door is open. She's crying in the hallway, talking about, the monster with big teeth and something about her ear.
Yeah.
That we couldn't quite make out. And then I went into the girl's bedroom. The 6-year-old is asleep on the top bunk, just oblivious, deep sleep. And the bedroom door is open. The doorknob, the plastic thing is still on the doorknob. So, later on, as the kids got older, they figured out they could break them off and get out of the door. But the thing was still on there. So there's no way she would have been able to open that door on her own. And John, the 12-year-old, he was in his room, so he was not asleep, but he was in his room. So,
yeah. And I also on her third birthday, she's 4 now. I think it was on her third birthday.
Yeah, her third.
Yeah, on her third birthday, I went to get her up out of bed, and there were handprints on her leg. And
it was a perfect handprint, adult-size handprint on her leg. It was not hurting her. She wasn't complaining about it. I just noticed it when I was, changing her diaper. Like, that's weird, you know? It's not hurting her. We took some pictures of it. Like the angle, we're trying to figure it out. Like, did she have her hand there laying weird on it or something? Just there's no way the angle with the way the thumbs match up. You'd
And
have
they
to
were too
be
big.
backwards,
They
right?
were too
So
big.
it'd have to be the opposite side, right? The way the
Gotcha.
thumb matches up, right? So, and then, you know, we're kind of concerned about it. And then as a couple hours go by, they're gone.
Yeah.
It's just one handprint. And then after a couple hours, it's gone. There was no pain, nothing like, so we're trying to figure out, the only thing we could think of is that maybe mom was holding her because it was her birthday, you know?
Oh, well, wow.
Yeah. So, and we've got some of those pictures and stuff, up on our sites, and
That's a good place to start bringing us in for a landing. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we're going on almost an hour and a half now. Okay, so tell everybody real quick where they can find you guys at.
Well, paranormaltriage.com is our website, and you can access all of our other social medias from there. We have a YouTube channel, we have an Instagram, X account, Facebook, and we put all our videos on all the different platforms. So some people don't like YouTube and only want to use Facebook. You'll get all the same content on everything. You can shoot us a message on all of those. The website's a good place to start because it'll connect you to everything. And then you can email us from there if anybody had a question or wanted to talk to us. All that information's on www.paranormaltriage.com.
That is awesome. I'll make sure I get in the show notes too for you guys as well. You guys, crazy. Wow. And I don't mean that like in a crazy, I mean, wow. Wow. It's very rare that I finish up an interview sometimes that, I'm semi-speechless on.
And we
I
have
kinda
more.
am.
We have more to tell you.
We've
about,
got so much more too, so we could go on
Well,
and on.
we'll schedule a part 2 to have you guys come back on. And I want to do that after the Tombstone episode drops so we can talk
Mhm.
about Tombstone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you guys are okay with that one, we'll talk after this. But I do want to thank you guys so very much for coming on and sharing your endearment, heartbreaking story. Thank you very much for that. And I'm hoping your story is able to reach out and touch some other folks and maybe inspire them, things. And I wasn't trying to dig in too much. It was just that the ranch house. It seems everything's going back to that ranch house. I'm kind of curious to how her behavior was, during with the move, everything that was, transpiring. I didn't know whether she didn't want to leave, but when he brought the Anne Frank thing, it like clicked into my head for some reason about, they were up in the attic and,
Yeah, I've never thought
they
about
were
that
hiding
before.
out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So maybe she's feeling kind of, in some aspects, a connection with that,
Yeah.
an understanding as well. So, but wow. Yes. Thank you again, though, so very much for coming on. I do appreciate it. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're doing a part 2 for sure. Everybody, please go out there. Make sure you check out their website, check out their YouTube channel, take a look at some of this footage they have. Please do. And of course, I do want to thank you guys for liking and sharing everything. Remember, if you've had an encounter, you want to come on the show, email drunkencryptids@gmail.com. Send me a message to all of the social media platforms as well. May take me a day or so to get to you. For that, I apologize. My inbox is full. Don't give up. Keep sending me messages. So until next time, you guys, here's to good missing a good beer.
I can do anything that I want. I can do anything.